Hello and welcome to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Millie and I love any makeup, especially shiny, shifty, and sparkly eyeshadows. And today I'm going to be trying out the new color block highlighters, I almost said highlighters, palettes from Huda Beauty. I was super excited to see her come out with some colorful palettes. I know they came out with some colorful palettes like 2 or 3 years ago at this point. There was like a whole lawsuit with that and everything, so those are definitely not available anymore. But they were like kind of this 9-pan situation, and those, I bought 2 out of the 3 that they launched back then, and I wasn't a big fan of the one I used, so I didn't even end up using the other one. But the mattes were really thin and they just blended away. So definitely skeptical going into it with these palettes. I was really hoping that, some time has passed, so hopefully they would figure out their colorful eyeshadow formula. I feel like Huda Beauty is really good at doing neutrals or just somewhat neutral colors, anything from like warm to cooler toned, and shimmers, especially shimmers. I think that Huda Beauty has some of the best shimmers out there, especially for a more mainstream indie brand. I'm actually not 100% sure how independently owned Huda Beauty is considered. I do know that Huda herself did step down as the CEO probably like 2 years ago now, but she is still very much the face of Huda Beauty. So they came out with these 2 palettes that are really fun and colorful. I love the packaging. The packaging is everything. I love the color combination and I love the fun play with the different textures. So you've got like an acrylic packaging. It's a little bit like see-through, and then this is rubber and it just feels super cool. This palette has a couple of new things for Huda Beauty, which are a split pan. So this shade in the center is a split pan of 2 shimmers, and then there's also a cake liner, or basically a water activated liner, which I think is super fun. I know that there's been a couple of brands here and there that have come out with some water activated liners in palettes, such as Morphe, I believe. I think it was one of their like collaboration palettes with like 25 shades in the bottom row had water activated liners. Because the palette was cardboard, I just felt like that didn't make sense. I was very concerned about the whole wetting the pan, and then what if you get it on the cardboard? So I do like that this is plastic and you have the water activated liner in here. Definitely something that's very new for a brand, especially that's sold in Sephora, and I can totally see this becoming more and more common in the future. So I do feel like this is probably the first palette in Sephora that you see that has a water activated liner, and I think it's just gonna explode from now on. So we've got purples and oranges, and there are technically 4 shimmers in that pan, so you are technically getting kind of like an extra shimmer in here. So that's that palette. And then the second palette excited me a bit more because I do prefer this color story to the other one. We've got some blues and some greens, and there are only 3 shimmers in this palette, but there's also another cake liner, which is a little bit more of a pastel shade, just like the one in the other palette. So I'm going to be creating one look with each palette, and then this final look, the third look, which is going to be combining both of the palettes. And then at the end of the video, as always, I will give you some of my thoughts. So I have watched a couple of reviews and people seem to be having issues with this shade. So I'm going to be very particular in the way I use this one, just to see if it does it even if I go in with this shade first, because I have a feeling it might be one of those shades that's best used first and then blending out the edges afterwards. It's definitely on the thinner side, I can tell, just putting it on and the way it's swatched. So then I'm taking the lighter purple shade that's in the lower right corner, and I'm gonna use that to help blend it out. And then doing that same thing on the other eye. I keep slouching, so I'm always out of frame, so I have to put my chair up to account for my slouching, which is pretty sad. But anyways, I'm gonna take this under my lower lash line. I definitely think that worked the best. I could totally see this shadow having an issue with really layering. So like right out here, it's definitely not as deep as it looks in the pan. I'm just gonna layer it on a little bit more, but I'm really trying to be careful. I do think that the primer probably helped the fact that it was tacky, but it did blend out really nicely. Like, that's not really the issue. I think the issue is just really building it up. It just doesn't really wanna. I really wish this was really deep though. Next I'm going in with the P. Louise primer in the shade 0, and so this is a white shade. And I'm gonna use it to create a halo eye. I think I should have put something in the center here, but it's fine. Maybe like a purple, and I'm just gonna tap out the edges so that there's no really harsh lines. Maybe just a little bit. Just going over that. And I am going to add just a bit more, and I'm going to cut it just a bit higher to really account for my hood here. And just tapping and tapping. So I'm gonna take the purple and just help really feather out the edges of that right here. I'm taking the center orange shade from the bottom row, and I'm just going to put that onto the edges. I don't really want it to blend in with the purple per se, since that would get a bit muddy. So I'm just kind of layering it on. And then I'm gonna take the orange shimmer and put that right in the center. I feel like this is gonna be better with my finger. Oh yeah, definitely way better with a finger. Just gonna take it all the way up. All right, so I think I'm actually gonna take the corner shade on the bottom. It has a little bit of a purple flecks in it. Oh, that does not want to put down at all. That's really strange. Picked it up and I spray my brush. And I just want to put this in between like a bridge on both sides. This seems like such a hard pressed shimmer, and I can already tell it's going to be a hard panning type of shimmer. Just I could tell from videos and just from like looking at it and touching it. It's just definitely that kind of shimmer. And then I'm going to take the orange matte eyeshadow under my lower lash line, and then the dark purple under the rest of my lower lash line. Next, I sprayed a little bit of water into the cake liner pan, and I'm gonna do I want to do a wing? I think I want to do like a wing that kind of, it's not filled in completely. This is super pigmented right off the bat. So just kind of like this. It is getting a little bit lost there though. I might kind of layer maybe from the other palette to just make this one pop a little bit, but they came on super easy and it's already drying down, which I definitely feel like my other water activated liners don't dry down this fast. And I'm going to take it just a little bit under my lower lash line so it's connecting. So it's just like a little bit of a, okay, so I went into the other palette for the cake liner, and I'm basically just going to trace the inside of this liner. So easy to use, I can't go over it. I think I might actually trace the outside as well. I feel like now that I'm like, this got me going, I'm like, I want to keep going. Yeah, the pan already like dried, which is kind of wild. It's kind of blowing my mind how fast this is drying down. So now I'm taking this above the liner. That is super fun. Okay, I'm gonna go back in with the dark purple just to kind of clean it up a little bit, right in between. I'm still having fallout from the dark purple shade, by the way, as this is all happening right now. So here's the look with the orange and purple palette. On to the second look, and I'm going to be using the other palette, which I'm actually a little bit more excited about this color story. I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm starting out with the darkest shade in the palette, which is this beautiful dark blue. Oh, that is applying so beautifully. Take a shot every time I say beautiful. Oh, I love this color so much. And I'm just putting that down first. And then I'm going to take the shade right above it, which is such a beautiful, vibrant aqua shade. Oh, this palette is so beautiful. Just the color story. Oh, it's so fun. I do plan on filming some reels with each of these palettes, so stay tuned for that if you're interested in more looks. Unfortunately, I can only do so many looks with the palettes. I have so many palettes right now to film with. Okay, so that didn't really want to blend in with the dark blue, so I'm not really sure what's going on there. So I'm going back in with a little bit more of the dark blue, hoping to blend it up. It definitely did a little bit, but what about here? Oh yeah, that is blending in there. It's not ideal. It's kind of actually getting patchy on here too. It's like coming off. The color is coming off. I think it's just too much. So I actually had way worse of a time on this eye. I really feel like these are going to be kind of like put some down and then don't touch it kind of thing, or like don't blend too many shades together. So I'm just going in with my finger to tap on the blue, because I find that with anything that gets patchy, you can just go in and fix it with your finger. Then I'm going to take that under my lower lash line, the dark blue, and underneath here a little bit. But I mean, it's such a beautiful color. Go back in and just really packing it on. Doesn't really want to stick out here. I feel like in my corner sometimes I have issues there, and already got a little bit of fallout. There really isn't like a contrasting shade in this palette like in the other palette, the orange and the purple. This is more of a monochromatic kind of palette, so I'm just going in with the lighter half of the split pan. I definitely think this would benefit from a glitter primer. I'm just dabbing a tiny bit on here and then going back in with the shade. Oh yeah, that's so much better. The shade is a little bit more of a topper, so I think you could account for that. Definitely seeing patchiness again out here, so I'm gonna take the center top shade, which is like a darker blue with some layer blue flecks throughout it. I'm gonna take that onto the edges of this blue, kind of similarly to the other eye. Yeah, it's definitely patchy out there. Like it's just the eyeshadow is just like missing. So I'm gonna try to pack it back on very strategically with this brush. That definitely helped a bit, but not loving that, not loving that. Next, I'm gonna pack the light aqua shade above the dark blue shade right in the center, underneath my lower lash line. All right, time for the liner. I'm gonna reflect what I did on the other eye on this eye. And if something like that happens, you can always fix it with a shadow. So I'm just going back in with a shadow on a super pointy brush out here to kind of clean this up a bit. But yeah, wow, that liner dried so quickly. I'm kind of tempted to go in with the purple liner, but I'm not really sure if I feel like it needs it. I just can't get over how fast it dries. I feel like it looks a little like textured, like when it dries. Just going in with a little bit more on top. I feel like it's brighter and then it dries down and it's not as bright. At least out here. Do you see that? I feel like there's like a texture happening here from it drying. Like right now you can see it, especially. So definitely not 2 layers. And here's the finished look with the green and blue palette. Moving on to the third look. Honestly, I didn't really feel like even filming this other eye because I just hate the way the other eye came out, and I'm quite frankly totally done with these palettes. Oh my gosh, so I'm priming with the P. Louise paint primer, just trying out different primers to see if any of them will be better. and will help with the eyeshadow application. I'm just tapping that in. So I'm going to be dipping in between both the palettes. I'm first going to go in with the orange. I'm going to go in with the darkest orange, which is the first shade in the palette. Like, some of these are decently pigmented and they blend out decently. Like, they're okay. It's just some of the shades are just so almost unusable. And then I'm taking the peachy shade, which is the last shade in the first row. And I'm just using that to blend that. Like, this is nice. This is nice and blended and got lots of pigmentation, etc., etc. Like, this looks okay. So next I'm going to be using this blue to create an eyeshadow wing, and then I'm going to be blending this on top of it, which is going to get kind of lost anyway, but I'm just going to be creating the wing first. This is one of the shades, again, super, super thin and just easily blends away. So I feel like if you got these palettes and you're stuck with them, I would say this is going to have to be a palette where you kind of use one matte at a time, maximum 2 mattes, and throw a shimmer on and call it a day. This is definitely not like an intricate kind of looks palette or like super just using all the mattes in the palette together or creating anything remotely like just past 2 mattes really is going to give you trouble. So next I'm taking that blue shade right next to that and I'm just putting it a little above, like right into the dark blue, just a little bit. Obviously I don't want it to mix in with the orange too much, it's gonna get super muddy. But yeah, I'm just gonna kind of wing this out a bit more. And then I am gonna go under my lower lash line with the matte purple right here. And that's just gonna go right next to the blue. This shade is very gently pigmented for sure. I mean, it packs on, but again, it's just super thin. And then I'm going in with the very center shade from this palette to do the inner kind of portion of my eye, just right here, just packing it on, not really worried about blending it too much. It's gonna kind of blend itself out essentially, so just a little pop of that shade in here. So this is like super colorful now. And next I'm gonna take my Fair & Pixie epoxy and I'm gonna essentially do like a fake cut crease situation just up here, just enough. And I picked up the orange from the split pan in the purple orange palette. And I'm taking that right on top. These shimmers are definitely like, they're okay, but they do need some assistance of like a tacky primer preferably. And then taking the Fair & Pixie epoxy again, I'm just putting it along my lash line and a little bit onto the wing. And I'm taking the darker shade in the split pan in that palette. And just taking it right across the wing. A little bit in here as well. Just taking it down and I have a little bit of fallout. Next I'm going to use the water activated liner that's in the blue-green palette. I'm just going to create a little graphic liner situation. I really wanted to see how it would look if it was on the skin here versus the skin there, because when I looked at the photos of the first and second look I did, I noticed how textured this liner looked. And it was just not it, and I am winging it out here, so I'm just gonna fix it up a little bit. I don't know, it seems really, like it's not bad, but I don't know, I'm not like in love with it. I was like, oh, at least the liner is going to be good in this palette. I mean, it's decent, but it definitely does dry down and doesn't look as vibrant. So you can see right here, this is dried down and this is freshly applied. So that's something to definitely like account in when you're using these liners. To finish off the look, I put on the Randy lashes from Lily Lashes. I just really felt like I needed something a bit dramatic to make me feel better about this look. So here's the third finished look. If you have these palettes in your cart right now, take them out. take him out of your cart. These are not worth $29. Like, straight up, I was hoping that maybe this one was going to be a little bit better just based on watching other people's reviews and then trying it out. I was kind of like, oh, maybe this one is not as bad. And no, I feel like they're equally bad. I think there's some shades in each of the palettes that are pretty decent. Like, they really are pigmented and they blend nicely, but then there's other shades, quite a majority I would say, that are really, really thin and they just want to blend away, and you could see that in all the tutorials. Just really not a fan. I feel like for $29 for a 9-pan eyeshadow palette, I just feel like it's too much. There's so many other better colorful formulas out there, such as Blend Bunnies. Especially, I think you could definitely create similar looks with the Blend Bunny palette. I'm just really, really disappointed in these. I definitely had my hopes up that these were going to be super fun. I feel like the concept was there, but just the execution, not good. Personally, I don't really mind the 9-pan eyeshadow palettes from Huda Beauty. I have the, I think it was like Cougar or Panther or something like that, the one that launched last fall, and I really like that one. I enjoy it very much. I feel like definitely the formula between those mattes and these mattes are pretty different, and I think it just has a lot to do with the types of colors that are in here. I just think that Huda Beauty hasn't quite figured out how to do colorful eyeshadows, and they're really good at doing neutrals. I do want to give it to them for always trying to be innovative and just adding different things. They have done, you know, marble shadows. They've done the like Petri dish shadow in the larger palettes, and they have some really beautiful shimmers in the larger palettes, and as well as the previous palettes from fall, like the Cougar palette has some really interesting shades in it. So I do really commend them for that, because they are trying to kind of keep things interesting and adding things, and really I feel like almost setting like a certain tone and a bar when it comes to eyeshadows in Sephora. Like, I really feel like they have certain things down, but this is not it. Also, the shimmers in here, I knew from the moment I put my finger in there, these are so prone to hard panning. I usually don't really mind that, but I feel like for what you're getting in here, it's just really disappointing. One way to get more out of the shimmers is to use a tacky primer. Definitely helps a lot. As for the palettes, I feel like they're kind of both equal. I prefer the color story of this one. Do I see myself reaching for these? Probably not. I haven't used all the shimmers, but honestly, like, I don't even feel like using these palettes. I think I'm going to force myself to before I do my palette ranking for the month, just to see like how I feel about it like a fourth time. But I really feel like there's really no coming back from my experience so far. And I really don't like the way that the first two looks came out, especially looking at the photos that I took of those, because the liner looked really, really crackly and dry. So I'm going to talk about the cake liners next. I'm not sure if they're the best cake liners I've ever tried. I've tried a bunch of different brands. I've tried Suva Beauty. I've tried, I think they're like Gavisi now. I've tried, what is the other one? Glisten. So I've tried like quite a few different ones, and I feel like these really, like, they dry down really well, but they accentuate skin texture, which is why I really wanted to try them up here versus like somewhere where like my lid is moving a lot. And I definitely think that it looks much better up here versus on my lid. But again, I'm just not really drawn to dipping into this palette just for a cake liner that I can get from any other indie brand that sells cake liners. Water activated liners are just so easily purchased from so many different brands. There's so many different indie brands that sell them, and they have all the colors of the rainbow that you could possibly want. So I just really feel like definitely not worth buying these palettes just for that. Do I feel like it's fun? I do, and I really thought that these palettes had some potential, but unfortunately they're super, super disappointed in these. Just really recommend not buying these. Maybe if they're like 50% off in the next 6 months or something, because I can totally see these going on sale pretty quickly. But otherwise, $20, even at $20, I don't think they're worth $20. $15 max. But really, like, for what reason if you can kind of get the same thing from other brands, you know? So those are all my thoughts on these palettes. Let me know in the comments below if you try them out and what you thought of them. I would love to hear your thoughts. And that's everything for this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. If you're new to my channel, I would love it if you subscribe. There's so much indie makeup content, lots and lots of tutorials uploading my channel, and much more to come. You don't want to miss out. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.